what I really would like to say, though, first of all, it's kind of like being married, or kind of like they tell you when you do premarital counseling. You know, it's not so much finding the right mate as it is being the right mate. And I think that same thing applies here with the party, with the political party. You know, it's great to find that super dazzled candidate out there who's going to advance your cause and do everything for you. But in order to attract that candidate, you first have to be the right kind of person yourself, or the right kind of party, or the right kind of entity, the organization. You have to have something that you have to focus, I think, first of all, on being the right entity for them to run on. So who do we attract? You know, sometimes this party has been compared to David when he was fleeing from Saul in the wilderness. And those that came to him were those who were in debt and distress and despair. But, you know, I said that at a meeting one time back in the infancy of this party, and I think I offended some people. But, you know, David turned those people into a tremendous force. That may have been the motivation that got him out there, that got him out of the whatever situation they were in and followed him. But he was the kind of leader who turned those people into a mighty force, who was able to evade Saul and all his forces. And this is nothing taken away from the fact that God protected him, of course, but his people, many of them then became his top leaders when he became king. So it's not necessarily who you attract initially, but what abilities they have and who they can become under the proper leadership. But again, that goes back to what kind of an organization are you? Are you an organization that has a display of confidence, that exudes confidence and the ability to get something done? Of course, some candidates, some people, they want to see somebody who's going to win, or they want to be assured of victory. Of course, you can't do that. You can't be that. You can't offer that. But you can be an organization that looks like it's on the go, and is doing something, doing the right thing, and gives them a basis, a foundation from which they can run. The question is, what do we have to offer a candidate, a top quality candidate? Now, they called me an executive committee, one of the ancients of this party, and I don't know, maybe beard had something to do with that. I don't, but of course, Darrell and some other people here got called that too. But going back a long ways, back in 1996, for those of you who were involved in the party then, you know, we made a tremendous effort to recruit Pat Buchanan as our nominee for president. And we've done everything we could to try to get him to be our nominee, because we thought he was a top quality candidate and he would be one that we would want to head our party. Well, you know, he did not become the nominee, and of course 4 years later he ran on the Reform Party ticket. And why did he do that? I'm not saying this is the right reason, but the reason he did it was because they had $12 million in federal money that they got because of what Ross Perot had done in 1996. They had something to offer him. They had an organization to offer him. Mainly they had the money, though. We could never offer that kind of money. And I, talked with Pat back at that time, and he put it right out there to me. What do you have to offer? Well, that kind of hurts, because in all honesty, we didn't have a whole lot to offer back then. We had enthusiasm, we had fervor, we had commitment to principles, had a good platform. And maybe he wasn't the top quality candidate, but still, if you want to attract top quality candidates, you have to have something to offer them, something that that will attract them. And I guess first and foremost in that probably is ballot access. Our speaker this evening, Joe Miller, I can say this since I don't think he's here yet, but he ran on the Libertarian Party for U.S. Senate in Alaska this last time. And the primary reason, quite frankly, was that he ran on the Libertarian Party as opposed to the Constitution Party was because they had ballot access. We did not. The Constitution Party did not have ballot access. And that happens over and over again. And it's been talked about lots of times before. But if that's one of the critical things to offer a top quality candidate. If you don't have ballot access or a means of getting ballot access, you're not going to attract the top quality candidates. And I think Frank has said, if somebody says, if you ask how many ballots you have in the country and you say, oh, well, they're going to dismiss you pretty quickly. But, and of course, the situation varies from state to state. In Pennsylvania, it's virtually impossible for us to get ballot access on a permanent basis because we would have to have 15% of the total registrations in the state in order to have permanent ballot access. Otherwise, we have to petition every time. So Pennsylvania is a state where all we can do is offer them that we will get you ballot access. But still, extremely important to be able to offer them ballot access. That's got to be a priority if you want to attract top quality candidates. And of course, I already mentioned money. I don't know, most of us are not wealthy people here. Daryl may be an exception, but the rest of us, we struggle from paycheck to paycheck, and we have a hard time. It's a real burden for us to support the party, support this effort, even to come to meetings like this. But that's still one thing they look at. And we may not have a lot of money ourselves to put into it, but we need to be able to figure out a way to raise money. Doesn't matter how poor you are, as a party, I mean, or as an individual, I suppose, too, but it doesn't matter how poor you are, you have the ability with the effort to raise money. And that's, they want to be able to see that you're going to be able to raise some money for them. And organization, that you have an organization that is set up properly, where you have volunteers, you have somebody coordinating the volunteers, you have a well-oiled machine that's ready to work for a candidate. That's the thing that will attract a top quality candidate as well. And of course, you can't downplay enthusiasm. I think that's the one quality that this party has had from the beginning. When we didn't have money, we didn't have the best of organization. Frankly, candidly, we still don't have the best of organization across the country. There are certainly some states where we have very good organization, but we generally have had enthusiasm. We had commitment to principle. We had a desire to do something. We were cause-oriented people. We wanted to make a difference. We wanted to make a change. And so we had that, but I think that's an essential ingredient. And because of that, there are people who have sought us out for our nomination, because they saw that we had that, and we provided an opportunity. Now, back when I was chairman, I know, and Frank probably, I know Frank does get the same thing now, but there are, from time to time, there are people who come to inquire. They may be dissatisfied in a particular area with the Republican candidate or somebody else, and they're looking for an opportunity to run or to challenge the establishment in some way, and they'll inquire of us. What do we have available? What are the chances of getting on our ballot, running on our ticket? And that's because they see that there is something there for them to do, for them to advance their own cause. If we have something to offer, a good candidate will be seeking us out. And so that's why I say it's important, first of all, to be the right person, be the right party, be the right organization, so that people come to us, the top quality candidates come to us. I think a little bit like in baseball recruiting. Now, I'm somewhat of a baseball fan, not mostly a sunny day fan, fair weather, but and I'm from southeastern Pennsylvania, so my team is the Phillies. If Howard were here, I'd say something nasty about the Braves, because he was the one that he was. We always had this banner going about the Braves and the Phillies. But you know, how do they recruit the top players? I mean, first of all, they had the scouts going out. And I had to think about what Janine was saying. You know, using every opportunity to spread the message, using every opportunity to recruit, raise money, or whatever it may be. And the same thing is true in this. The teams have their scouts out looking for talent. But then they also have to have something to offer. Of course, money is a big factor there too, but a lot of people want to sign with a team that has prospects, a team that's going to go somewhere, a team that's has a chance for the ring, for the World Series ring. I remember a few years ago there was a player, I think his name was J.D. Drew. I think he had initials. I have trouble remembering his name anymore, on purpose probably, that I forget. But the Phillies drafted him, and he didn't like the Phillies. He didn't think they had a chance to do anything. And so he sat out, I think it's 2 years. But, you know, if you're drafted and you don't sign with the team that you're drafted by in the draft, you have to sit out. It's either 1 or 2 years before you can sign with another team. And he did that. He sat out. He went out, you know, didn't play professional baseball for 2 years because he thought the Phillies stunk as a team and they weren't going to give him a chance to advance his career as a baseball player. Thankfully, never amounted to much anyway. But still, that was extremely insulting to Phillies fans, because, you know, how could somebody, a top prospect like that, thumb his nose and say he'd rather sit out for 2 years than come and play for this team that's not going to give him any chance for an advancement. And the same thing, the same principles will apply to a political party. If they see us as a party that's not going to go anywhere, that we're not doing anything, that we're not achieving anything and don't have any solid goals, they're not going to want to come and play for us or be our candidate either. Of course, the good positions in is to be such an organization and have be a magnet for good candidates. Have multiple candidates coming and saying they want to run on our ticket, so that we have to choose the best from among the good. That's the ideal situation that we'd like to see, and we've had that from time to time, but probably not as often. And I appreciate what Janine had to say about if you're breathing, you're okay for as a candidate, and that's a start. That's where you can start there. You should consider that, but it goes a lot further than that. You know, look at the candidates. Two points I guess I want to make on that. First of all, there does need to be some vetting. Once you find the candidate or somebody who wants to run, do some vetting. Why do they want to run? I mean, there's plenty of ego to go around in the political realm, as you know that. And it's sort of a dilemma, because on the one hand, you have to have a certain amount of ego in order to go through the whole process of being a candidate. But then beyond that, you don't want to have too much ego that it's all about you. And we've seen some candidates like that, where there's just all about them. That's all they wanted it to be. And they weren't really not sure why they wanted to attain the office, other than the fact that they wanted the aggrandizement of being elected to that office. But look at you need to vet them on their commitment to the issues, to our platform and their ability to articulate those issues. And look at their work history. I know we had a candidate one time, wanted to run for Congress, who was unemployed and had been unemployed for a long time. And he looked and dressed that way. I mean, I hope it's not offending anybody, but that's, you know, you just, that doesn't represent the party the way you want it. You don't want. We had somebody else who was a felon, who had a criminal record for burglary and that type of thing. You know, you don't want those kind of people representing the party. That's not the top quality candidates that you want. And the other thing you have to look at is, you know, what is the candidate willing to invest? What do they have to offer? Is it time? Is it talent? Is it you know, money? Whatever. What do they have to bring? What are they willing to invest themselves? What are they? What will they commit in making the race? So there are a lot of things that go into it, and we try hard to find the right people. And then the other point I wanted to make finally is that there's also training. You get the people who are willing and meet the basic qualifications, but then they need to be somebody who can be trained and who's willing to be trained, because there are all kinds of resources out there to help you be a good candidate, to employ the techniques and strategies that will help you to be a successful candidate. But they have to be willing to do that, and they have to be amenable to training to be able to change. So it's an ongoing process. It's an ongoing battle. But there are good candidates out there, and if we do the right thing, we can attract them, we can develop them, and we can make a difference in our in the political process. I think my time. No, I have it. Actually, I have a little bit more time yet. So now I wanted to give one war story, because this ties into some of what our other speakers are saying. Back when I ran for quite a number of offices, not as many as Janine Hansen has, but for Lieutenant Governor twice in Pennsylvania, for U.S. Senate, for Attorney General in Pennsylvania, for County Commissioner, where I did the best in terms of percentages and so on. But one story, and this is a story I tell my clients sometimes. In 1998, when we were running for, Peg Luxick I was running for Lieutenant Governor, and we were doing a little powwow at the beginning, saying, well, what issues should we promote? What issues can we promote that we can present well? And I said, I think we ought to propose the elimination of the inheritance tax. At that time, the inheritance tax in Pennsylvania was 6%, and it applied to 6% if it went to the immediate family. It includes even between spouses. And I said, we need to really make an issue of that, and I think that's a winning issue that we should go on. This is sort of stepping on Derek's talk and Janine's as well, but I think it's a good story nevertheless. We were out in the campaign trail. I was out at an event one time for candidates, and a sitting state senator stood up, and he's got to give Jim and Peg credit for making an issue of the inheritance tax, because we are now holding hearings on the inheritance tax in Pennsylvania. Now, they didn't abolish it like we wanted them to, or like we were proposing, but they did lower it to 4.5%, and they did away with it as far as for between spouses. So there's no longer any inheritance tax between spouses, and for other children, grandchildren, and so on, they lowered it to 4.5%. They lowered it for siblings from 15% to 12%. So we got something. So there's even a case where, even though we didn't win the election, we still had an impact. And in fact, this senator, this sitting state senator at that meeting, that forum, people and other candidates there, said if it had not been for Jim and Peg raising this issue, we would not be doing this. We would not be looking at holding hearings on amending the inheritance tax law. So there's a case. My point there is that even when we don't win an election, we can have an impact, we can have an effect on public policy. And when they start taking our issues and doing something with it, that is a measure of success. And it's not always realistic to have as a goal of winning. We always want to win, but it's not always realistic. But if we can make a difference by getting them to change policy, we've accomplished something, and I'd say I'll call it a successful campaign. Thank you.